Hi everybody! It is absolutely my honor to be able to show you these corsets in the case study today. These corsets used to belong to a very fashionable lady who recently lost a 15-year-long battle with breast cancer. And her widower had contacted me and said that he would like these corsets to be able to go to somebody who would properly appreciate them, especially because they are made by Amy Crowder, the late corseteer, who was the owner of Wasp Creations. So today I'm going to be showing you these corsets one by one, and I'm going to show you all the details of them in a case study form, as I usually do a case study instead of a review for corset makers who have passed away. And these corsets will actually be available up on eBay later on today and will be auctioned off for the rest of the week. So you have the opportunity to purchase any of these corsets. They are extremely rare, as you know, so that is why I am incredibly excited to be able to show you these. And many thanks to my mother, who kindly agreed to model these corsets for the sake of the video. So I'm going to start with this tailcoat style corset. This one was actually my mother's favorite to model. So here's the front, the side, the back, and the other side. Another thing I wanted to add quickly is that the condition of this corset is actually very close to mint. The widower had said that his wife had very rarely worn this, only for a couple of special events. For the measurements of this corset, starting with the length of it, the center front length here is about 10 3/4 inches. 5 3/4 inches of that is above the waist, and another 5 inches below the waist. And then along the princess seam here, at the shortest part, from the underbust to the top of the lap, that is 9 1/2 inches. And then you can see that the center back is very, very long. The center back is 16 inches long in total, and 6 inches of that is above the waist and 10 inches below the waist. I also took the circumferential measurements, so the closed waist measurement of this corset is 30 inches. The underbust, or the ribcage area, is 36 inches, and at the high hip here, it is 38 inches. And then below this point, because it doesn't wrap completely around the body, even though this is sort of, you know, it's still boned, it's still structured, it's kind of free-fitting. It's meant to curve over the bum area. So for the materials, the fashion fabric is this ivory brocade with these golden butterflies all over it. And the previous owners had told me that these corsets, they picked out their own custom fabric and then sent it to Amy to be made into a corset. So this was not the usual style brocade that she would actually make her corsets from. And then the strength fabric, you can see actually right here, it's more of a densely woven canvas or a buckram. And that's not like the normal herringbone couture that many other corsets are made out of. However, I know that Axford's makes their corsets with a special canvas style couture, as well as Dark Garden uses canvas in their corsets for the strength fabric as well. So it's not like it is completely different from what I've seen before. And turning this corset on its side, it has a 6-panel pattern, 12 panels total. So you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But the seams from the boning channels are completely independent from the seams of the corset panels themselves. So the corset panels are very vertical, actually, whereas the boning channels, especially in the front here, are all angled towards the lower tummy to give it a little bit more control. I'll get more into that later on, but I thought that was very interesting that those were independently sewn, and she wouldn't follow the actual line of the panels themselves. That's similar to what I've seen in some antique corsets, actually. So these panels look like they were very, very finely top stitched, and on the inside here you can see that the bones are in internal boning channels used with this twill tape, and then in the back there you can see that some of them are even sandwiched between the layers. And on the inside here you can also see that there is a 1-inch wide waist tape running from the front bust all the way to the back grommets there, sandwiched between the layers. Here's a close-up of the binding of this corset, made from strips of matching ivory brocade with the golden butterflies on it. It's machine stitched on the outside and also on the inside here. And you can see that it also has 6 garter tabs, 3 on each side. There's also a stiffened modesty panel here that is secured on the laces here, so it's suspended, and you can see how it's almost quilted. You know, it has the seams running down there to keep it nice and smooth, and it has the matching brocade on the outside and the canvas on the inside. Additionally, there is a very stiff 1-inch wide steel modesty placket underneath the busk here. The busk in this corset is 9.5 inches long. It has 5 loops and pins. The bottom 2 are a little bit closer together, and it is a standard flexible busk, 1/2 inch wide on each side. It looks like there is a seam here, which looks like it might have a supporting bone on that side, but actually it doesn't have any boning in it. However, because of the extremely stiff, strong, wide steel modesty placket underneath, this busk does not bend at all once it's actually fastened. Very, very sturdy. The bones are more visible on the inside of the corset, so I counted a total of 27 bones in this corset, 13 on each side, plus the steel underbusk there, and as you know, I don't count the actual busk itself in the number of bones. All of these feel like flat steel bones, and these 3 pairs, 2, 4, 6, these are a little bit more narrow. They're about 1/4 inch wide, whereas these ones that are more single boned, wrapping around the back of the corset, these ones are a little bit wider, probably 3/8 of an inch, and you can see here that's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then sandwiching the grommets in the back is 12 and 13, and you can see how the grommets actually overlap literally with the bones in the back of the corset, which is very characteristic of Amy's corsets. And here's a close-up of the grommets. There are a total of 26 of them, 13 on each side. They are a lot closer together at the waistline, you can see here, compared to above and below the waistline. You can see that these are size 0, so they are 6 millimeter wide internal diameter there, and they have a wide flange around them, finished in gold, similar to the gold butterflies in the brocade here. And they are holding in very, very well. They're extremely strong, and you can see a better view of how the flange of the grommets overlap with the bones there, so that prevents them from ripping out, and it also prevents the bones from twisting in their channels as well. And moving the modesty panel aside here, you can see that all of the grommets have washes underneath. They're all in very good shape. The grommets have rolled really beautifully. I don't see any catches or splits in these grommets. They're still in very good condition. And the next corset I'd like to focus on is this red brocade underbust. And here's the front, and the side, and the back, and the other side. So for the measurements of this one, the length here in the center front is once again 10 3/4 inches. 5 3/4 inches of that is above the waist and 5 inches below. The princess seam here at the shortest part, from under the breast to the top of the lap there, that is 9.5 inches, 5.5 above the waist, and 4 inches below the waist. And then in the center back here, it's 12 inches long, a little bit longer, and that is equally divided 6 inches above and 6 inches below the waist. And for the circumferential measurements, the closed waist of this corset is 27.5 inches, and I figured she probably designed it to stretch out eventually to 28 inches. However, like the Ivory corset, this corset was very rarely worn. The previous owners had said that she only wore this maybe a couple of times in her life, so this is very close to mint condition. The underbust measures 34 inches around, and the hip here measures 40 inches around. And for the materials of this corset, 2 main layers. The fashion fabric obviously is this gorgeous red brocade, and it has leaves of this sort of golden brown and magenta leaves all over it. And then on the inside here, just like with the other corsets, it has a strength fabric of this stiff sort of canvas or buckram. And it's actually easier to see the construction of the panels on the inside here. So I believe this one also has a 6-panel pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And again, the panels are for the most part fairly vertical. There is quite a lot of room for the hip curve here between panels 3 and 4, and you can actually see on the outside how the boning channels don't follow the seam of the panels there. You can see how that is the seam between panels 3 and 4, yet the bones are angled more straight. And it angles towards the lower tummy to give a little bit more control there. And it also allows them to use the flat steel bones instead of spirals, since it's following a straight trajectory. And in between the panels, you can see these seams here, how it's almost quilted. These seams sort of flatline the brocade to the strength fabric to help keep it smooth when it's on the body. And on the inside, you can see the outline of the waist tape here. So it's invisibly stitched between the layers here, 1 inch wide, running straight from the front busk there, all the way to the back laces. The binding in this corset looks to be made from a matching grosgrain ribbon or corduroy style fabric, as these boning channels are made from. It's machine stitched on the outside and also on the inside here. And you can also see that there are 6 garter tabs, 3 on each side. The modesty panel in this corset is a little bit over 4 inches long. It is stiffened, and you can see that it's finished in matching red canvas here. It is not suspended on the laces, so you have the choice to use the modesty panel with the corset or leave it if you don't like modesty panels. Additionally, there is a very wide, 1 inch wide, stiff steel bone underbusk that also doubles as a modesty placket underneath the busk here. And the busk itself is 9.5 inches long. It has 4 loops and pins. The last 2 are much closer together than the first 2 here, and it is a standard flexible busk, 1/2 inch wide on each side. You can see that it's fairly flexible on its own. However, when you put the very strong steel underbusk underneath there, it barely moves at all. And the bones here are very easy to count, as they're all in external boning channels here. So they're all steel boned. I believe they are flat steel bones. They all attract the magnet as well. And you can see that like with the other corsets, the first ones, the ones in the front of the corset, are double boned, 2, 4, 6. They are 1/4 inch wide each, and they all angle down towards the lower tummy to give a little bit more control in this area. And then there is no bone that's actually going over the main hip curve. That is left free. And then here in the back, 7 and 8, these are slightly wider bones in single boning channels. And then 9, 10, and you can see how these flat steel bones have the grommets overlapping those bones to help prevent the bones from twisting in the channels when you're lacing up, and it also helps prevent the grommets from ripping out of the fabric, since the boning there is available to support them. So there are 10 bones total on each side of the corset, plus this stiffened modesty placket underneath here, for a total of 21 bones in this corset. There are a total of 22 grommets in this corset, 11 on each side. You can see how they are much closer together at the waistline compared to above and below the waist. Gives a little bit more ease of cinching at the waistline there. They are finished in silver, size 0, so 6mm internal hole diameter, with a large flange around them. And you can see how they are supported by the bones on either side. The actual flange is overlapping the bones themselves, and that is what helps prevent them from ripping out of the fabric. And on the underside here, you can see that the washes are also nice and large. The grommets themselves have rolled really nicely. I don't see any splits. I don't notice any catching on the laces here. And the last of the 3 corsets we'll discuss is this everyday style denim blue colored cotton canvas underbust. So here's the front and the side and the back and the other side. And the measurements of this corset are very similar to the measurements of the red brocade corset that I showed you earlier. So for the measurements lengthwise, the center front is 10 3/4 inches. 5 3/4 of that is below, above, and 5 below. The princess seam, it's 9.5 inches long. 5 inches is above the waist, and 4.5 inches goes from the waist down to the lap there. And then in the center back, that is 12 inches long total, and 6 of that is above the waist and 6 below the waist. From the way that the fabric is creasing and the way that the bones are curved here, you can see that this corset got a lot more use compared to the previous 2 corsets. The circumferential measurements of this corset: the waist closes at 28 inches, the underbust closes at 34 inches, and the high hip closes at 40 inches. For the materials, it appears to be 2 layers of the same type of fabric, this blue cotton canvas. So it's the same on the fashion fabric as it is in the strength fabric here. I can see seams where the 2 layers look to be flat lined. These seams going down in the center of the panels there, and it also helps to secure that waist tape in place. On the inside here, you can see the panels. There's a 6-panel pattern, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The panels, like the other corsets, they run fairly vertically, whereas the boning channels run independently of those panels. These external boning channels run more diagonally and straight, converging on the lower tummy here to give a little bit more support. You can see here one of the seams between panels 3 and 4. This is the curve that goes over the hip, and that is not covered by the boning channel. The panels look to be assembled with a secure top stitch. I see, I think, 3 different lines of stitching on each of these seams. And also on the inside, it's very easy to see the waist tape, a 1-inch wide waist tape running between the layers, invisibly stitched between the layers, and it's running right from the back edge of the grommets to the front by the busk. The binding is made from matching black canvas. It matches the boning channels and also the one side of the modesty panel. So you can see that this is machine stitched on both sides, outside and the inside. And you can also see the garter tabs here. 6 total, 3 on each side. This modesty panel is 4 inches wide. It is stiffened yet still flexible here. You can see these rows of stitching going down right there. And it is finished in blue canvas on one side and black canvas on the other side. So you can actually wear it either way in the back if you wanted to, or not at all. Since it's not suspended on the laces, you can choose to go without if you wanted to. Additionally, there is a 1-inch wide modesty placket underneath the busk here. It has a very stiff steel bone in there that keeps the busk very stiff and sturdy. And just like with the other 2 corsets, this one has a 9.5-inch long busk. It has 4 loops and pins. The 2 at the bottom are a little bit closer together, 1/2 inch wide on each side, so it's a standard flexible busk. You can see on this side it's fairly flexible, but with that placket underneath there, then when you put the busk together, it is very straight. It creates a very straight front. There are a total of 21 bones in this corset, not including the busk. On each side there are 10 steel bones, and then that 21st bone is this very stiff modesty placket underneath the busk. So on each side you can see that in the front it's double boned here, 2, 4, 6, with 1/4 inch wide flat steel bones, and I did test that they are steel by using my magnet wand here. And then 7, 8, these are single steel bones. They're slightly wider. I believe they're 3/8 of an inch wide steel bones here. And then on the back here, these are again 1/4 inch wide flat steel bones, and these sandwich the grommets. So the bones and the grommets work together like with all the other corsets, and the grommets prevent the bones from twisting in their channels, and the bones prevent the grommets from ripping out of the fabric. And in this corset especially, you can see how the flat steel bones in the front hip here were deliberately curved to contour over the hips there for more comfort and to actually kick out the hip a little bit and make it look more dramatic. As well, you can see how the back of the corset is actually a little bit curved to help hug the lumbar part of the spine there, so that it would be more comfortable for somebody who has sway back or a bum that is actually quite prominent and sits high on the body. And just to demonstrate just how easily this corset can be laced up, you can see that I'm pulling with one hand and it's bringing the 2 sides together. That's so much fun. There are 22 bones in this corset, 11 on each side. They are once again size 0 with a large flange around them. These ones are finished in black to match the contrast boning channels and binding on this corset here. And you can see how they're a little bit closer together at the waistline, a little bit further apart above and below the waist. And all of them seem to be holding in very well. Here's the back of the grommets. You can see nice wide washers. All of the grommets have rolled really nicely. I don't see any splits. I don't see any fraying of the fabric around the grommets here, even though this corset got quite a lot more use compared to the previous 2 corsets by the previous owners. I hope you enjoyed these case studies as much as I enjoyed showing these corsets to you. Once again, I will put a link to the eBay auction down below for these corsets, and I will put a lot of the information in this case study in all the listings as well. If these corsets are not your size or you can't afford to bid on them, please do share, because it's very important to the owners that these corsets find somebody who will properly appreciate them for what they are. So thank you again, and I will see you all in a few days for the next video.